Episode of the FO News Show. My name is Cale Clinton. With me, as always, is Jackson Roberts, here to break down the last week in NFL news from around the league. Jackson, we got a full week of football under our belts. How are we feeling?
A little bit tired from being through the full slog of a football week. I got to be honest with you. I think we both talked about this. We sort of forgot how much of an emotional strain and honestly a visual strain it is to sit on the couch and watch 10 hours of football, but couldn't be more happy to be doing it. 21 more weeks to go. Let's dive into it.
It's impressive realizing it takes a lot of work actually to watch 10 hours of football. Just the visual strain of it all, like the colors that wash over you when you've got a quad box going on your monitor. I'm going to be honest, it's an athletic achievement that we got through this.
As great PGA golfer Kevin Kisner would say, this ain't no hobby. This is for the true diehards.
Absolutely. Now, we've got a full week of news. I think we've got to start with the story that's kind of permeated throughout the news since Sunday, and for good reason. But before we get into that, we've got to first talk about our sponsors at Underdog Fantasy. Play on Underdog Fantasy with us and double your first deposit up to $100 with promo code OUTSIDERS. Even with NFL best ball season over, Underdog has other user-friendly game formats to spice up all the games. Try their Battle Royale, a 6-round best ball style draft with similar chances to win that traditional daily fantasy sports sites. Or try their Pick'em games, where you can wager on players' chances to go higher or lower than their projected stat lines, even in states where traditional prop betting currently isn't available. Join the fun over at UnderdogFantasy.com or download the Underdog app from your app store today. And remember, use promo code OUTSIDERS now to double your first deposit up to $100.
Kale, if you are a state where prop betting is not legal, I get with the program. What year is it now? Let's go.
Listen, that legislation slowly trickling down the pipeline, but until then, Underdog Fantasy has you covered.
Set up Underdog Fantasy, promo code FO, profit.
I don't think we can guarantee it, but it sounds like a sure recipe to me. Now let's get right into the news there. It's the one story that's kind of rung out since Sunday. Dak Prescott not going on IR, but will undergo surgery for a broken hand. Hit his hand on Shaq Barrett, I believe, in the Sunday Night Football game against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Jerry Jones has been telling the media, quote, he's seen people walk out there and, quote, David slay the giant. So I think he's got faith in this team with Cooper Rush filling in. But Jackson, no matter where you look at this, it's not good.
Have to agree there, Cale. So first off, let's say Dak is only out 3 to 4 weeks. If you go 0-4 or even 1-3 in 4 weeks, that's not good. When Dak goes down in 2020, he was having a historically great start to the year through those first 5 weeks. Obviously, not a great start to this year in only 1 week. But in 2020, those first 4 games they were missing him, they go 0-4 and they get outscored 110-41. So I don't think this team is particularly excited to play without their leader again. Cooper Rush, 63 passes in his NFL career, so not a lot of tape on him, good or bad. But in my opinion, if you're standing on the sidelines of an NFL game, that means you're not getting game reps, and I don't like that a whole lot. See, I'm just very worried about this Cowboys team, that every other team in the division wins week 1. I think the Commanders and Giants open some eyes a little bit. They're maybe not going to be quite the pushovers we thought they were. And yeah, this is kind of a desperate time for a historically desperate franchise in the Dallas Cowboys.
I think the issue for me is just how much wind gets taken out of the sails by going from Dak to Cooper Rush. We already saw some struggles with the offensive line. Dallas allows 4 sacks. They really can't get anything going in the run game. But when you look at this passing attack, I mean, CeeDee Lamb finishing up going 2 for 11. Targeted 11 times, walks away with 2 receptions. Mike McCarthy brought it up. This is the new world that CeeDee Lamb lives in. He's going to be getting a lot of attention. The downgrade from from Prescott to Rush here is steep. I don't know. Rush finished up the rest of the fourth quarter, 7 for 13, 64 yards, 2 sacks, QBR of 11.7. Do you think that the Cowboys can sustain competitiveness at all through the rest of this slate? Because it looks like you said, the rest of the NFC East, walked away with 3 wins, and now the Cowboys have the Bengals, Giants, Commanders, at the Rams, at the Eagles, at the Lions. If Dak's had 6 to 8 weeks, he's coming back for either Bears or Packers or Vikings, one of the 3. It's kind of in that window, but I don't know. Do you see the Cowboys staying afloat until then, or do you think are you ready to phone it in now?
I don't think they're toast, Cale, but I'm gonna plug in the toaster and I'm gonna really give it a good look week to week because, for one, I did just get done talking about the Commanders and Giants being maybe a little bit better than we expected. Still, if you factor in our DAVE stat, which mostly counts last year's DVOA, but does weight week 1 about 7%, Washington and the Giants are still number 30 and 32 respectively. So we don't think that there's still a whole lot of football talent there. So even with Cooper Rush, I would say they're kind of right in it in terms of that specific matchup. And the Lions too. We are huge Lions guys. We love what they bring to the table. But at the same time, that team can be beaten by anyone and anything. They're supposed to be favorites against the Commanders this week if lines don't move, and that would be the first time in 24 weeks that the Lions are favorites. So I don't know. I'm not optimistic, but I am just saying the schedule works out. If things go right, you could win those 3 games and be close to 500 when Dak comes back.
Yeah. Now, one team that does have some optimism around them compared to where they stood Sunday is Pittsburgh Steelers. Things looked a little scary on Sunday for him. TJ Watt goes down. Cameras on the sideline catch him mouthing, I tore my pec. Not a full tear, as it turns out. Watt was able to get second and third opinions on his diagnosis. He's going to avoid surgery for the fully torn pec, but a partial tear is going to leave him out at least 6 weeks. I ask you the same question, Jackson. That Steelers defense that performance by the Steelers defense gave him the 4th best finish after 1 week by VOA, and it bumped him into our top 10 in our first official Football Outsiders DVOA rankings with film on. We're not just going off preseason predictions anymore. We got some tape now. Now I pose the same question to you. Can the Steelers defense stay afloat without Watt?
I mean, maybe afloat, but I don't think afloat is good enough for the Steelers defense. I think this defense has to be kind of the driving force behind them winning games. We saw in the second half, Mitchell Trubisky unable to spark a drive of over 17 yards in the second half of that game. So I don't know. I think that at the end of the day, TJ Watt is a massive loss. I'm glad that he's not missing the whole season. He's a joy to watch. I think landing on the Patriots with a questionable Mac Jones at this time is a good opportunity for them to kind of mind trick their way to 2-0. But this team, TJ Watt's been such a staple for this team, Cale. His NFL career, the Steelers have had 82 games since his rookie season. He's played in 78. He's been pretty durable. This is going to be the first time he's missed an extended stretch of football. And every time he hasn't played in the past, this team's gotten way worse. They give up, on average, they're 0-4 in the games he hasn't played, and they've given up an average of 28 points. So I don't like their chances, I've got to be honest.
Yeah, the thing for me is just Watt's such a force multiplier. His presence commands so much attention. Finished Sunday's game, 6 solo tackles, a sack, 3 tackles for loss, I believe 4 QB hits. Also had 2 pass deflections and an interception that he pretty much caught with just all of his body coming in. Pretty impressive athletic feat there. But the attention he commands, he makes it look so easy, just in a 2-point stance, like sitting on the edge in like a wide 9. He opens up so much, whether it's for, the attention that gets commanded for away from him goes to a Hayward or a Miles Jack or an Alex Highsmith. He brings so much to this Steelers front seven that I do have questions as to how potent they'll be, because now you can, a lot of very good players on this team, but having someone with Watt's caliber is just completely shifts the scale.
And he's the decoy, but he's also the leader. You talk about all the stats you want. Yeah, he's top 10 in pass rush win rate. He's number 1 in sacks from last season. But he's also just the emotional leader of that defense. He's got a special makeup. He's the guy that everyone looks to in the huddle. So, there's still lots of veterans on that defense. Devin Bush, I think, another guy we should mention, still very talented athlete that can do some things for them. But it's got to be tough losing a guy like that for not just a week or two, but an extended absence where you just can't look to him to depend on him to be able to, win you a one-on-one battle when he finally gets one and create some momentum for that defense.
Yeah, and if we're doing more schedule talk again about times where Watt can return, even if we call 6 weeks the low end of that spectrum, because it's probably, between 6 and 8, their schedule is a lot more promising, in my opinion, than the Cowboys in Dak's case. Hosting the Patriots, at the Browns, versus the Jets. Big, tough stretch of at the Bills, then hosting the Buccaneers. But then their last 2 games is at Dolphins, at Eagles, before their bye where they host the Saints. It's a lot more tolerable here for me because, maybe you chalk up the 2 losses to the Bills and Bucs, but all of a sudden you've got, Patriots, Browns, Jets, Dolphins. These are winnable games here. I don't know. I don't think it's going to be too big an issue here. I think he makes a decent comeback. It's a shame that we're losing him this early because he really opened up his decoy title defense right where he left off.
Yeah, I mean, their schedule does get a little bit dicier in the back half of the season. So even when you do get him back, I don't know if being around 500 is going to be enough. When you play, revenge game against Cincinnati, you play New Orleans, you play Baltimore twice, and then you finish out the season with Cleveland with Deshaun Watson ostensibly back in the fold. So there's, the AFC is so good this year too, Cale. It's not like I think you're going to be able to sneak into the playoffs at 9-8, 8-9. It's really going to take for the Steelers to kind of put some wins together here without Watt and build that momentum for when he comes back.
Yeah, absolutely. Updating up to Monday Night Football. Jamal Adams might be done for the year after a quad tear during the Monday Night Football game. Only played 13 snaps, I believe, for the Seahawks in their pretty impressive win over the Denver Broncos. He goes down. Looks like it's a quad tear. Now, Jamal Adams, not as, kind of been memed out of his actual production, if that makes sense, where, last year among D-backs, finished pretty strongly. Still finished 7th among safeties in yards per pass allowed and 16th in success rate allowed, while maintaining top 5 status, while defending the run. Jackson, how big a loss is this Jamal Adams loss after a pretty promising first game showing out of the Seattle Seahawks?
Yeah, I want caution there because I still think the Seahawks are going to be quite bad, and I don't think that's all that dependent on whether or not Jamal Adams is there. Very fun win for them against a more talented, Russell Wilson-led Denver Broncos team in week 1. And obviously forcing those turnovers at the goal line, great stuff. But at the same time, there's a little bit of an element of luck involved there. And I think that at the same, there's going to be more tape on Geno Smith moving forward. We'll see if he really is, kind of this second coming, 9-year veteran all of a sudden becoming, the player he always promised himself to be. But I don't know. Jamal Adams is the kind of guy where, he brings a lot to a locker room. He's been a 3-time All-Pro, so there's just kind of a level of stability that comes with that, where guys look across the room and say, this guy's been, at the top of the game. He actually hasn't recorded a sack since December, week 16 of 2020. So, kind of the Blitz Boy moniker that's been drawn up for him. I don't know if he is, truly Blitz Boy anymore. I think people were pointing to some film where he dropped an interception this week. It really just kind of hit him in the helmet as he was diving for it. He's a competent D-back. And I think that at the end of the day, this team isn't necessarily going anywhere anyway, but it does hurt to lose him. But also, Shelby Harris said after the game, maybe they can kind of spin this in a positive way and do this for him as opposed to just feeling the loss all the time.
Yeah, that is honestly one of the bigger takeaways from me, just because, listen, they're at the top of the NFC West. We'll give them credit for that.
Yeah, they are.
But I don't, I don't think anyone's writing them up as Super Bowl favorites right now, or even, playoff contenders, obviously not. But there is something like, Monday was a real feel-good night for the Seattle Seahawks and all their fans. But I think the loss of this, what really stands out to me is just how much the Seahawks have seemed to really enjoy Adams' presence. Pete Carroll went on Seattle Sports 7:10 a.m. On Tuesday after the game, and had this to say about Adams. The fact he's such a heartthrob about the game of football. He loves playing, and he just can't deal with right now about, quote, how could this keep happening? It was good to have. It was good he had him with his mom and dad in the locker room really during the game when he was in there to kind of help him through it and all that, but it was really tough. So I hope everybody sends the love to him. That's pretty heartwarming to say, lead it in the locker room, say what you want about his presence, say what you want about the process of trading 2 first rounds for him. Good story out of there in Seattle. Just, I do like that takeaway of, maybe the Seahawks do rally around Adams. We've got Josh Jones filling in, replaced him for the rest of last night's game. We also have Ryan Neal on the roster, but, maybe replacement level guys like that do step up and do perform well for him. It'd be nice to see. Seattle's just a really heartwarming story right now through 1 week.
It is really a 1 week thing. I think this was you might almost get them to acknowledge that this was their Super Bowl, Cale. They go 5-12 this year, but they beat Russ in Russ's homecoming. I think a lot of Seahawks fans would take that. I think a lot of Seahawks fans honestly would take 1-16 if it includes a Mariners deep playoff run this year. So we'll see if they can make that trade with the sports gods.
I will say a lot of people will joke week 1, like, oh, congrats, you won your Super Bowl. I think the Seahawks are very okay admitting that this might have been their Super Bowl.
That's fine. Yeah. I'll take it.
Kicker news in this week as we make the pivot. Colts cut Rodrigo Blankenship in a series of roster shuffling moves. They'll be bringing in Lucas Haversick and Chase McLaughlin. The cut comes after Blankenship missed a potential game-winning field goal. Blankenship, just 25 years old, drafted in 2020, been a part of the Colts for 2 years. He connected on 30 of his first 33 field goals. You gotta feel a little uncertain about where the Colts are, not only after the Sunday tie to the Houston Texans, but if we're getting some shuffling in this early. This is a team that a lot of people at Football Outsiders have beyond have tapped as the AFC South Division winners potentially. It's early and it's a kicker, but where does cutting Blankenship leave you with this Colts team?
I think what it really shows you is that there aren't 32 really good NFL quality kickers. There are maybe guys who are good enough to be kind of at the Blankenship level where they make, his career level was 84% makes. The NFL has raised the standard so much for kicker play that that's just simply not good enough. And granted, there aren't 32 guys that are good enough, but I think in order to kind of be that championship caliber team, just go back through the years. When's the last championship level team that didn't at least have, a top half of the league kicker? I think you'd be looking for a while. So those Patriots teams, they went from having Adam Vinatieri, who was considered maybe the greatest kicker of all time, to Steven Gostkowski, who was the most accurate kicker of all time until Justin Tucker came along. So I really think that position as as deep as it is at the college ranks, as many guys as there are week in, week out that get brought in for these workouts, Haversick was 34 of 53 at Arizona. Has he somehow figured out the magic formula in his time since college to become, a 90 to 95% converter with the narrower posts? I don't know.
A lot of open spots. Bring up Haversick. Chase McLaughlin has had 3 years of NFL experience, but admittedly has played for 6 different teams in that time span. Career field goal record of 37 for 49, looks like, at 75.5% make rate, 67 to 69 on extra points. Blankenship beats him out percentage-wise, 83.3% career field goal make. Has missed 3 extra points, though. Is it an overreaction to say that the Colts cutting their kicker, missing 1 game winner, might be an overreaction?
It's possible. I don't believe it's only been 1 game winner, if memory serves. Blankenship, he's always had a lot of, he's racked up a lot of makes. The Colts have been a team throughout the past 3 seasons that have kicked a lot of field goals. And I believe he even challenged the rookie points record, if I'm not mistaken. But he's never been, consistent outside of that 40-yard range. That's been kind of the big knock. So I don't necessarily fault them for wanting to go a different direction and just try something new. But I do think that the stability at the kicker position is maybe not underrated. But I think every fan of a football team knows that feeling when a kicker goes out on the field and you just don't trust him. And that's a terrible feeling. Chicago Bears fans have had that feeling for a decade at this point, and it's not fun. So I think the Colts had that with Blankenship for the past year and a half or so, and it was enough to be like, hey, let's just try something different and see if it works out.
Yeah, we're not quite at Tyler Ninja Blevins status, who's once famously tweeted, oh, you've never seen this? Ninja from the Fortnite guy tweeted, I'll never understand how college and NFL football teams allow kickers that just miss kicks. I feel like there has to be pools of kickers in the USA that won't miss simple kicks, or snappers that won't mess the snaps. I don't know what, man. It seems so silly. Would love opinions on this. Apparently we're in the other camp and believe there are not 32 kickers.
Yeah. Have you tried kicking a football before? It's really difficult. And the sort of hip flexibility it takes, there's not a lot of guys out there who are just sitting around eating potato chips on a Sunday afternoon who can suddenly get out there, move their hip at a 180-degree angle and kick the ball 50 yards between narrow uprights.
I don't know. In the words of Tyler Ninja Blevins again, a kicker's job is literally to kick. Horrible analogy, kind of embarrassing.
Yeah. To bring it back to another thing, you ever see the old Katie Nolan bit where she takes people who tweeted about how terrible their kickers are for missing a certain kick and then just brings them out and has them attempt that length of kick? That's what I feel like we need more of in this world. We need more people understanding how hard the kicker's job really is, even though it does look simple in that it is very one-dimensional. It's a very difficult dimension to master.
Just an immediate comeuppance. We do need more of that. In field news, Cleveland Browns are now bringing Brownie the Elf to their center field logo. A revamped logo, bit of a, one win in an offseason of 10,000 L's for the Cleveland Browns. You need one kind of good PR win to re-engage in the old Brownie the Elf logo. Got the video playing here. Now, don't want to talk much about the Browns or Brownie the Elf. Did want to ask you, Jackson, in a rapid-fire question. If you had one old-school logo that could be brought back or have an NFL team sort of, either re-engage with or reimagine, which are you going with?
Well, I think for both of us, sort of the correct answer, as I see the Patriots helmet behind you, I happen to have in the far background behind me this Pat the Patriot logo. I think Pat the Patriot belongs in center field at Gillette Stadium for sure. But if I could cheat a little bit, and I brought some props with me as well, Cale, if we could somehow get a team back on the field wearing this Houston Oilers logo, that would be gorgeous. at the middle, at the 50-yard line. And I would love to see that incorporated somehow as well.
I don't hate the Oilers. Maybe it was just seeing Russ in the uniform last night or on Monday night. I do hope that the Broncos bring back that D with the horse blowing steam out of his nose. That is a really strong one. I also am a big fan of just the literal Jets logo where they have the plane incorporated. I mean, there's a lot of good options. We don't have enough people in football. I think the go-to is also just the Buccaneers Buccaneer, which will be brought back when they bring back the creamsicles. Wouldn't mind seeing that take some sort of permanent status in Tampa Bay.
I agree. And let's have more teams using, kind of week-to-week alternate logos at the 50-yard line as well. I hate when teams will go with just the generic NFL shield at midfield. I guess you have to at MetLife Stadium because you're swapping out teams every week. But, let's get some variety in there. We've got graphic design experts. We've got people who are wizards with the spray paint. Let's start mixing it up more.
All right. Well, that's enough about logos from us. Now it's time going back.
I like field news. Field news can be a new weekly segment if we can find more.
We might have to expand larger to just stadium-wide news, but we'll get there. Now we're going to the injury roundup. Kick it off in Tampa Bay. The aforementioned Buccaneers got 2 injuries we're circling back on this week. Donovan Smith exits Sunday Night Football's game, their left tackle, with a hyperextended right elbow. Currently, his availability dictated solely by pain tolerance. Probably getting some tramadol injections. We'll see how he sort of fares with that. Status doesn't seem to be impeded for this week. Chris Godwin, on the other hand, his hamstring injury that he exited with is, quote, as serious as we thought it was. No status, but it seems like he is pretty much out for at least week 2. We'll see where they go from there. How's this going to shake out for Tampa Bay, Jackson? I'm getting worried about their offensive line.
Yeah, well, props to them for finishing in the top 5 in offensive line adjusted yards for week 1. That's a great Football Outsiders metric we can go back to. Donovan Smith, kind of stepping up into that left tackle role. There's, so much movement on that offensive line throughout the offseason. We talked about how they just stole Shaq Mason from New England, just ripped him right out of the clutches for absolutely nothing. But, losing like an Ali Marpet, there's injury to Ryan Jensen during the preseason. That's a lot to deal with. You don't want to be juggling your line too much. So really hope Smith is able to stay healthy, stay on the field, take the pain. It's far be it from me, who never played it down in football, to ask people to just take the pain on an NFL football field. But I think the Buccaneers, it's to their benefit, obviously, if he can. Godwin's a concern, though. It matters to have a good number 2 behind Mike Evans. Liked what I saw out of Julio Jones in week 1, but you don't want to count on somebody who's, been around the block too many times necessarily to kind of carry your offense in the number 2 role for long term. So, the Bucs can hopefully piece it together for a few weeks here. I still like them a lot. They have, the ageless wonder, Tom Brady, just guiding the ship, and it's going to be a good team all season long. I don't think we debate that, but there's a lot of moving pieces with that offense that we'd like to see, kind of stay in place to retain that stability and make sure the Bucs are kind of a viable contender throughout the year.
Yeah, I mean, I'm glad they avoided any major missed time with Donovan Smith. This is going to be something that's lingering, obviously, but it's good that you at least have your left tackle in place. It's filled in by Josh Wells on Sunday night. Godwin, I understand why you want Chris Godwin on the field. That being said, very surprised with how Julio played on Sunday night. Looking spry out there. And in addition, it's why you bring in Russell Gage. They learned the lessons of last regular season. That team is basically derailed by, AWOL Antonio Brown and then the Chris Godwin ACL tear. Getting these guys, getting something out of Julio Jones, getting Russell Gage is, partly a depth add, partly a rejuvenation add, to have, a bona fide second option behind Chris Godwin. it's a loss, but I'm not too concerned because I'm impressed with what I saw out of who they have behind them.
Yeah, no, 100%. This Bucs team and Brady historically throughout his career has been great at taking, those second tier weapons and turning them into something of value. The Bucs have a pretty tough schedule coming up here. I'm not going to lie to you. That's, the one reason that you would love to have Godwin back is you play the Saints, a team that's tormented the Bucs apart from the one playoff game with, Drew Brees' arm falling off. Then you have the Packers, then you have the Chiefs. So you don't want to be, getting into that 2-2, even things go to absolute worst 1-3 range when you have, a Saints team that appears to be a pretty decent contender for them in that NFC South. So love to get Godwin back, but I think you trust in Brady and that doesn't let you down very much. For all the concern, quote unquote, about how they looked in game one, they still, rolled over that Dallas team that made the playoffs last year.
Yeah, definitely. I'm not too concerned yet. We'll see how they fare. There's going to be some stiff competition, but, I like what they got in house right now. That's all I'll say. Moving on to New England. Patriots have officially placed running back Ty Montgomery on the injured reserve. Montgomery finished with just 2 carries for -2 yards for the Patriots. However, was heavily involved in the passing game, finished tied for 3rd in total targets among the team. 3 receptions for 15 yards and a touchdown, had New England's only score of the afternoon. Jackson, how do you see this New England team supplementing whatever involvement from the running backs in the receiving game that they have? Because now James White's retired. Their offseason addition of Ty Montgomery is out. Damian Harris has never really been a passing back. Ramondre Stevenson has tried to get involved but finished 2 targets, 2 receptions, 2 yards with a longest of 5, which means he got blown up on one play pretty badly. Where are you at with this? And just maybe the New England offense in general.
Where I'm at with the New England offense is not a great place, to be completely honest. There was a very promising start to that game that was derailed by the jump ball between Xavier Howard and Devontae Parker, and things just went south from there. None of the receivers particularly looked great. You had the one nice Kendrick Bourne catch down the sideline. Jacoby Myers got involved a bit. But in general, I think this strategy of trying to kind of build a sum of the parts greater than the whole receiving core is looking a little sketch right now. And then obviously the running back room, Damian Harris, solid. Ramondre Stevenson, like him as a change of pace. I didn't want to be depending on Ty Montgomery if I'm the Patriots, but you do need that receiving option. I don't know if you're going to get it out of Pierre Strong. We don't have quality NFL tape on him yet, so we'll see if he can get involved at all. But yeah, I think the issues for this Patriots offense go a lot deeper than just the running back position, and especially a Ty Montgomery who's been a journeyman at best throughout his career. It really is not. I'm not very optimistic about the Patriots offense right now, and nor am I optimistic about the defense that can't arm tackle. So I'm not riding high on Pat's fever after week 1, to say the least.
Patriots finished 28th in offensive unadjusted total VOA. That's a finish in 30th in the passing VOA and 14th in rushing VOA. And if I share any thoughts with Jackson, it's that I don't trust a defensive coordinator turned offensive line coach and a special teams coordinator turned quarterbacks coach to figure out anything creatively for this Patriots offense. Moving on.
Well, Mac Jones. Is Mac Jones okay too, Cale? This is another thing. I think he's going to play from what we know, but you don't want your second-year quarterback to be potentially hamstrung. And I say hamstrung, but it's his back that's the concern.
Yeah, so he's apparently feeling better. It was downgraded from a back injury to back spasms. Apparently said, my back hurt. We were trying to figure out what the issue was. They did all the tests and everything was fine. Little nebulous for my liking, but vote of confidence. say what you want about Mac Jones' week 1 performance. If he goes down, the whole ship goes down. So we'll see.
And back spasms maybe not enough to miss a game in the NFL, but in Major League Baseball, if JD Martinez gets back spasms, he misses 3 games. They get him right. So just because football is played, week to week and guys gut it out more, doesn't necessarily mean that this is nothing to worry about. This is the type of thing that can absolutely affect performance, can absolutely linger throughout the season. And again, if Mac Jones goes down or is ineffective, the entire Patriots season is derailed.
Oh yeah, no, it's a hole in the ship's bow. It's you're going to take on water quickly there. Moving on to San Francisco, another running back room situation. Elijah Mitchell placed on IR, set to miss 2 months with a sprained ACL, put his right leg in an air cast, leaving the stadium. His fill-in is Jeff Wilson, looking to take the starting job there. Behind him, undrafted free agent Jordan Mason and Tyrion Davis Price are fighting for the backup spot. Mason and Davis Price were originally in a camp battle for that 3rd spot. Mason ended up winning. Tyrion Davis Price was a healthy scratch headed to Chicago on Sunday. How big of a loss is Mitchell going down? And is it more in the running back or the offensive line? Because that was a mutter of a game. And I think I'm ready to chalk some of the running struggle of San Francisco up to this line.
Yeah, not just that. I think you do want to see them play a game where the ground is ground and not pond. It was definitely the type of game where you hate to lose, but also you can kind of throw out the tape. If I'm running PR for Trey Lance after week 1, I'm saying, how can you possibly look at that game and draw any strong conclusions? So the running back room being what it is, also shout out 6-year veteran Marlon Mack getting signed to the 49ers practice squad this week. We love when guys get jobs, even if that doesn't necessarily lead to them seeing the field. But yeah, you don't want to lose that game if you're San Francisco. So it's bad to start the season off on the wrong foot, and it's worse if you're losing a key contributor at any offensive position. But there's talent in that running back room, skill, and nobody gets more out of multiple running backs than Kyle Shanahan over the past few years. So I think you let Jeff Wilson ride a little bit. You give both Mason and Davis Price some opportunities and see what kind of clicks these next few weeks. I'm not hitting the panic button just yet on this 49ers season.
No, certainly not. Niners finished 14th in adjusted line yards first week out. Also finished 9th in power success and 3rd lowest stuff rate among offensive lines this past week. So decent performance, but if you look at the tape, maybe I'll chalk it up to the field, but it's not, beyond Trent Williams, just not as clean as it's been in recent years. I don't, again, I don't. The last night's game last week's game, week 1, reminded me of just the adverse conditions of the Bills Patriots Monday Night Football game with the 50-mile-an-hour winds. Sometimes weather games happen, and you can just chalk it up to that, and it's just an anomaly of the season. The Bills went back a few weeks later and pummeled the Patriots. Did it again in the playoffs right before that Kansas City game. It's sometimes weather can dictate a lot, and we'll see where it goes. But I'm more curious as to you look at Raheem Mostert last year in San Francisco. This isn't the first time a 49ers back's gone down for an extended period and outright lost his job to the backup competition. So we'll see how things shake out in San Francisco. I don't know.
Yeah. There's, you like to see a backfield with guys who can give you a lot of different things. So even if Jeff Wilson kind of steps in and wins that starter role, I'm sure that Kyle Shanahan's just, going into his playbook, going into everything he learned about Davis Price and Mason during the preseason to see what he can draw up to start befuddling defenses again once his team starts playing on grass and AstroTurf again.
I do want to remind you, Wilson's got a bit of an injury history. He's got some decent missed time between, as recently as last year, partially torn meniscus during weightlifting in May, then December ends up with a grade 1 knee strain, and then in January during the 49ers playoff run, diagnosed with a pedal ankle sprain. Just some ticky-tack stuff, so you've got to watch out for that Mason Tyrion Price camp. Those, I guess, practice battles at this point are out of camp, but it's a revolving door for the 49ers running back room right now. So we'll see.
And this is based on nothing but pure speculation from people I follow that are Niners fans and sort of tapped into the Niners, beat report scene. Apparently there's optimism on Davis Price. Apparently people are thinking that, let's say that you're trying to, build a fantasy dynasty this year, or maybe you're thinking about ways you can pick somebody up off the waiver wire who's not going to cost you much. Give Davis Price a shot. We'll see.
Honestly, not a bad call. We'll see. Now, moving on to our Thursday night football preview, slate of news sort of thing. Chiefs dealing with a couple different injuries right now. First off, Harrison Butker exits Sunday's game a little early with a left ankle injury. It was a DNP on Tuesday. Currently have Matt Amendolara in as the kicker on the practice squad. Also, Trent McDuffie, rookie cornerback, placed on IR. Chiefs head coach Andy Reid is pinning a little bit of this on Arizona. He's blaming the loose turf for the injuries to both McDuffie and Butker. The grass was resodded in Arizona after training camp, but Reid in press conference said it was a little loose. That's what happens when you resod. It's part of the Butker injury and the McDuffie injury, and that's unfortunate. Turf picked up, and I would tell you that it did have something to do with it. If it didn't, I'd tell you that too. It's not an excuse by any means, but you see it when you watch the tape. Not too big an issue, but got a lot of field issues in week one. Speaking of field news.
For real. And I think that if you're the Arizona Cardinals right now, you just got boat raced by the Chiefs. They came into your house, absolutely destroyed you, and then said your field sucks. That's a tough week one right there. There's not much. I think they were the second worst team in week one in terms of post-game win expectancy, behind only the LA Rams, who were also boat raced by the Bills. So there's a lot not to like over in Arizona. But if we go back to the KC side of this, I don't know. It doesn't seem like Butker will be out long. Ankle sprains are something people deal with. They move on. He might miss this week. It is a very quick turnaround. I feel like, this is just based on speculation regarding the tone people are, seeming to take with his injury. But I feel like he would play if this game was Sunday, but this game being Thursday is kind of what brings that into doubt for me. And I certainly think that going back to our previous discussion, Butker is in that, 90% tier of very quality NFL kickers. And previous history on Amendolara would not dictate that he is. So maybe for one game, it's possible that this could make a difference. But other than that, not as concerned. Trent McDuffie, you want your first round rookies on the field. That is a concern. And if you're going to blame it on the loose turf in Arizona, then let's get some better turf out there.
Just wanted to add that State Farm Stadium, where the Cardinals play, is maintained by a group called ASM Global. They manage 6 other NFL stadiums. Can you guess one of them?
FedEx Field. Soldier Field, yeah. Soldier Field.
So in addition to the flooding Bears stadium, you also now have the loose turf in Arizona. Now, let's not count on Justin Reid on those kickoffs, by the way, because he booted one.
Good stuff.
Pretty impressive showing.
I love a safety who comes in to kick. That's a great NFL first few weeks of the season subplot that always seems to somehow come around. Usually the team seems to win too, which is the really funny part. Like when the Cowboys smoked the 49ers a few years ago with their third string safety, just booting extra points, clanking them in off the uprights, whole team's going crazy. That's the kind of stuff you like to see early in the season.
That's the kind of positional versatility you're looking for. One more injury update out of Kansas City. Pat Mahomes, injury to his non-throwing wrist. He had some wrap on it during the game. Seemed to play fine with it. A little bit of shake off here and there, but in press conferences had addressed it. Says he felt good, was a little sore on Monday, but felt much better the day after. Anything to be concerned about here, Jackson? You think it's just fine?
Well, maybe they won't be able to throw left-hand shovel passes at the goal line this week, but no, I don't find there to be much.
If there was any quarterback this would affect, it's Mahomes just because of the runs.
But I also wouldn't be surprised if he just throws a 30-yarder with his sprained left wrist, and then maybe it hurts more afterwards. But he's Pat Mahomes, so he can. There's nothing I don't believe he's incapable of.
Headed over to the Chargers right now. We got 2 injuries we're keying in on for Thursday night. J.C. Jackson might be playing for a – sorry, so the bot coming in the chat. J.C. Jackson might be playing Thursday night after getting surgery on his foot in the offseason. Staley said he's improving. He was limited in practice on Wednesday, I believe. But he might be returning after getting some non-invasive surgery done on his foot. Keenan Allen is looking to be doubtful for Thursday night's game with a hamstring injury. Exited early against the Raiders. He's going to apparently take some time, according to Staley. How do you think that affects him going forward on Sunday, Jack, or on Thursday?
Yeah, well, I think that if J.C. Jackson is in practice after not playing last week, regardless of it being in a limited role, I think that's a good sign. This team is obviously going to have to step up big time in a defensive manner against a team that put up 44 points in week 1. So good to have him looking to be potentially available. Not going to say anything definitive, but that seems to be good news there. Keenan Allen, you don't want to be missing this game. Every time Herbert and Mahomes get together, the last 3 times these two teams have played, it's come down to a game-winning score in either the final minute of regulation or overtime. So I somehow don't feel like missing weapons on either side is going to impact this being a very, very fun back-and-forth football game. But it's hard not to acknowledge that Keenan Allen is wide receiver 1 in that building, and it is going to be missed if he misses time. You look for Joshua Palmer to step up. He only had 5 yards on 3 catches last week. So, you hope to get some more downfield production out of him.
Yeah, Mike Williams, another guy missing in there. I was going to say one thing I was impressed with from the Chargers last week was just their willingness to spread it out once Keenan left. Keenan finished leading the team, 66 yards on 4 receptions, one of those being 42-yard reception that Allen had. But we'll say 11 different guys had catches for LA on Sunday. 7-way tie for the target lead of 4. That's to do I want to go through all the names right now? No. But
we can save it.
Impressive willingness to spread it around, especially not to the guys, like a Mike Williams or a Josh Palmer who you kind of thought would be getting the ball.
For sure. And
that.
that's not even to mention another target in that room, Donald Parham, who misses week 1. And people will think back to last season and think about the very scary, head and neck area injury that happened to Parham. He missed week 1, not with that injury, but with a hamstring injury that's also making him very questionable for week 2. So this is a Chargers that, they've got 12, maybe 13 guys who can catch passes. And if they get all of them healthy, who knows who's getting on the field, but it can't be a bad thing to just have an absolutely stacked weaponry for one of the best quarterbacks in the league.
Yeah, seriously. And I think that's all we got. That'll do it for another. Yeah. I think so. I don't think we got anything else, unless we do want to talk about one Khalil Mack for the LA Chargers, who, after a 3-sack performance, said that it wasn't quite enough, didn't live up to his standards, apparently. Let me see if I can pull up that quote right now. Yeah,
What
said
does enough look like if 3 sacks is not it?
that was the question I was going to pose to you because tied for the lead in sacks among the Chargers, tied for tackle for loss, quarterback hits. What does enough look like? Because to Mack, he said, I left a lot of stuff out there and I have to get it corrected.
Wow. Well, I suppose he could be thinking in terms of a 2015 J.J. Watt performance. We could put Khalil Mack at tight end and see what he's got. But yeah, if you're on a 51 sack pace, I think you just want to keep doing what you're doing. And I think that it's going to be fun to watch Mack and Bosa get after Mahomes this week, because not only was Mahomes not sacked in week 1, he really, it seemed like he wasn't even bothered. Seemed like he could have just kind of thrown a picnic back there. So it's going to be an interesting matchup to watch this week. And if you're going to think about some bets potentially for this week, Underdog Fantasy, check them out. This was not one that I found on Underdog Fantasy, but there are some good Mahomes rushing yards props out there this week. So maybe go on Underdog Fantasy, look what that line is, and take the over, because Pat Mahomes is going to be streaking downfield, getting away from the pressure.
One thing I did want to add about Mack, this is from NFL.com. Mack, in his debut, was only the 5th non-rookie to have 3+ sacks in a debut with a new team. Since 1982, at least. That includes Calais Campbell, Vonnie Holliday, Chad Bratsky, and Gary Burley. So, rare company, and Mack still says it wasn't enough.
It's not enough, Cale. He needs to be not just sacking quarterbacks. He needs to be picking them up, carrying them 10 yards back, and having it marked as forward progress.
Well, I think that's enough for us today. We're excited to watch this game Thursday, but until next Wednesday, same time, same place, 1 p.m., this is Jackson Roberts. I'm Cale Clinton. We'll see you guys next week. Thanks so much for joining us today.